Так, друзья мои, добрый вечер. Good evening.
Спасибо большое, Грейм нас пригласил. Мы очень рады быть здесь. We have to remind you, this is not a political event whatsoever. This is a fundraising event for the people of Donbass and honest journalists in a war zone and for people who've been victims of this conflict. All the money will go to one of the hospitals in Donbass region.
But let's come in, let's move forward. So big thanks for Oleg and Oksana. Woo! And also massive, давай, большой, давай, Oleg. And a welcome, a huge большой. Спасибо, thanks, добрый пожаловать, привет, свадочи, рады видимся. And a big round of applause. Thanks everyone who's come, a big round of applause. And a very biggest round of applause. Большой, волна, потому что мы все здесь стоим вместо Донбасса. I'm Graham Phillips, correspondent, and this is kind of my event, but it's really mostly for Donbass, and everyone who's helped is really just, it's a huge team effort, so thanks very much. So I want this event to be really a positive thing. I want to be really, positive and upbeat about tonight. But the reason that we're here is because the reason we're here and not at Rowan's is because of another campaign by the pro-Ukraine activists, another hate campaign to cancel this event. And it happened the first time, and it happened the second time. And what they do is they threaten the venue, they intimidate people, they launch online campaigns, hate campaigns. But what I say is that you judge the strength of your cause by the other side. Who we have on the other side, these are people filled with hate, fueled by hate. These are people driven by a desire to destroy, not to create. What we've come to do here this evening is to help Donbass, is to help people who've been in a war situation for a year, civilians all around. This is my friends here. This man, Igor, was 26. He volunteered to serve with the Novorossiya forces to defend his city, Donetsk, against what he said and what exists as fascism from the Ukrainian side. A 26-year-old man that gave his life, that died defending Donetsk airport. These are civilians, these are good people, these are real, wonderful people that have experienced the worst year that you can imagine.
He's not a civilian, he's a soldier and he died. He's not a civilian, he's only a civilian.
But I'm saying that we have...
Not a civilian. Gibby's not a civilian.
But what way?
Gibby's a murderer. Gibby is a murderer.
I see.
And in the video, you see him tying people's hands. You show him with children's photos, punishing and. You show him in your video, feeding this.
Hey, listen, we wanted to see this. Go out! We enjoy here, and you not. Go out!
Gibby!
Get out of here! He's gone! Hurrah! And that is why, and I tell you something, it's people like that who are on the other side. And I tell you how we describe people like that. These people are scumbags. These people are people who support a Ukrainian government that I've seen shell civilians. I've turned up to places in Donetsk and I've seen bits of people, bits of bodies. I've seen women in hospital wards, missing legs, missing arms, and people like that support these people. And I tell you about that man. He was acting all friendly with me, all nice with me. He's a coward. He didn't have the decency to say who he was, and this is what we're up against. We're up against people who don't say who they are. We're up against cowards. We're up against scumbags. I'm going to call him what it is. That's why we're here, to stand against that, because he's a British man. And he's supporting civilians being killed. He says that Gibby's not a civilian. Who was Gibby? Gibby worked in a shop. This guy was an engineer. Even your Paul Chen These people are civilians who stood up to defend the net, and that's what we're here for today. And that's why we win. And that's why this event goes on. That's why he's out on the streets. So I'm going to say this. It's that we're stronger than guys like that. We're stronger. Это потому что победы для нас. Потому что мы сильны. А мы никогда не сдаваться. Мы никогда не сдаются. Против этого уродца. Мы продолжаемся о победе. Это для тех людей, которые защищают. I'd like to say, I'm going to give you 10 minutes or so, and I'd also like to say thank you because ты лучше, ребята. Я скажу тебе честное слово, если бы я против действий, я не буду там приехать и предполагать, что я дружелюбный, что я фанат, он хотел селфи со мной. Это все грязное дело. Это все нечестные поведения. Это даже не поведение человеческое. So, I want to say tonight, this in London, this is a little part of history. Because this is the first event of its kind that's been held like this in London to help Donbass. It's really amazing. I didn't expect this to happen in my country, that I would face this Ukrainian repression of freedom of speech, this attempt to destroy something, this attempt to stop helping these people who have been punished for a year. I've seen people in purple mice stand for 1 hour for a piece of bread. Imagine Leningrad in World War II, and I've seen those circumstances. And what do people here want to do? They either want to passively or actively destroy any attempts to help these people. Everything here tonight is about helping these people who we know, who we're within our hearts, are the most wonderful people that you could ever meet. These are Russians, these are the people from Donbass, and this is you here tonight. I'm not Charlie, but we're all tonight Donbass, and that's a really wonderful thing to be. So we wear it with pride. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and you can ask me any questions you like, and then I have a special guest, a really special guest. So, any questions?
How can we do anything in this country when there's a total media blackout? I'm a British Russian, British taxpayer, and I cannot even read newspapers anymore in this country or watch TV. My stepfather is English. I face this ocean of lies, and there's nothing I feel like I can do. You know, what do you see that...
It's a great question. What was your name?
Hannah.
So Hannah wants to know why it is in Britain that we should be the epitome, the paragon of democracy and freedom of speech, that we're having to hold as an exemplar. This event, which should have been, imagine if you will, that this were an event pro-Ukraine. We could host this in anywhere, in any establishment, in any venue in London. And you know what? This would be in the BBC. This would be in all the media. We would be loved. We would be universally applauded. We wouldn't have Russian channels. We love Russian channels. We'd have Channel 4. We'd have Sky News. So why is it that we're here in Finsbury Park, our third venue, a venue that I only got today because this young man here, Nick, I'd like to give a big round of applause.
Thank you.
I've been very kind. But I tell you what, having this event here, это не поражение, это победы. Потому что столько народ здесь сегодня, сколько людей. At the moment we have repression in Britain, we have a continuation, a perpetuation of a desire to stifle, to oppress, to destroy freedom of speech. But what we have is strength, what we have is commitment, and what we have is heart, and that means that the event might be in a cafe in Finsbury Park, but the heart is as big as the world, and it goes on and it goes ahead, and we never give up. We have another question. Ira.
Yes!
Give me another question.
Yes!
That's just a statement, but it's a lovely statement.
It's Russian TV, it's Channel 1 Russian. Thank you for inviting us. How difficult was it to actually select these 20 pictures? Because there were hundreds of them.
I'd like to say with the pictures, also everyone here, same day Zaголосова, the photo. Everyone here voted for the photos. So if you can give me a photo, every photo here has a story. Give me one photo here. So all of these photos. So tonight we can only auction half of them. Now we come back to freedom of speech. If we had a free media, what we would have celebrated on March the 16th was the liberation of Crimea, its return to Russia, something that the Crimean people wanted with all of their hearts. But instead we didn't. Instead we heard the word annexation thrown about all over the place, as if it was a given. And that wasn't the case, because they weren't in Crimea. I was in Crimea. This is what I saw. This is a photo of people expressing free will, freedom of speech. And why are we afraid of that? Why even tonight? Couldn't I give the exact venue address at the last minute? Because the Ukrainians called the police to that event. Can you imagine how much effort has been put into stopping this event tonight, into cancelling this? But that's all events orientated. That comes and that emanates from hatred. And these people here, this anti-Russian sentiment that we have in Great Britain, unfortunately, these people who are just against Russia, they want to destroy, but these people in Crimea, they want to create. And this is a little photo, this is a little snapshot of happiness, of liberation. These pictures were chosen by votes, these pictures were chosen by the people who came tonight. They voted for them, they commented on them, and each of these photos is a little moment of history. And it's a moment that I want you to know the real story. When you look at this picture, this is an annexation, this is liberation. And at the moment we have an unfortunate situation that we've fallen in Great Britain to a predicament that we have repression, we don't have freedom of speech, but Great Britain is a great country. Great Britain is a country that fights fascism. Great Britain should be an example to the world, and it will be again. And the fact that we've held this tonight, and this is just the first, this is already a step towards restoring the freedom of expression that we see in this photo. And if you show me another photo here, pass me any photo. Again, we heard about Crimea. We heard about Russian forces, regular Russian army. Look at these guys. Every camouflage is different. These were local people. What I want to say tonight is I know that some of you are from Donbass, Novorossiya, some are from Russia, Diva. But I know also, can you give me a cheer, people who are from Great Britain? Ludziom, понимаете, что самый лучший народ Великобритания, Mr. Boy. И каждый день болей встают на стороне правда. Это вот, ребята, вежливые людей. And we're in Britain also, polite people. Tonight we're having a polite gathering. We're just here, we don't want to harm anyone. We don't want to do anything bad, we just want to help people. It's been made really difficult to do that, but we've done it anyway, because in the end, Vishlivi Ludej, Pobitis, вот так. Еще вопрос. Спасибо, спасибо. Еще один вопрос.
Следующий вопрос по-русски ответь.
Давай тогда.
Говорить по-русски.
Многие люди тебя здесь знают.
Да.
Для многих людей, для многих зрителей в России, не все знают. Что тебя заставило заниматься тем, что ты сейчас делаешь? Почему ты журналист, который рассказываешь о Новороссии по-другому, о Донбассе по-другому?
Вопрос дело в том, допустим, почему я настолько, наверное, преданный, если я могу использовать такие слова, со своим задачей в Новороссии. Это потому, что я жил в Киеве, я так считаю, как корреспондент всегда должен быть на месте, где освещает события. А я прочитал статью из BBC. Угадать, как они делали эту статью. Они не были на месте, они далеко от места. Они делали эту статью через Skype-интервью. А через это интервью на Skype с парнем из России, они сказали, что это русские войска, русский танк в Дебальцево. Я был в Дебальцево, а я не видел русский танк, я не видел русские войска, а я не видел BBC. Я жил в Киеве, я знал Киев, я жил в Одессе, я знал Одессе, а я был в Донецке до войны. Я был в Донецке во время Евро-12. Quickly in English. I was in Donetsk at the time of Euro 2012. А я помню, в Евро-12 турн, это был русский город Донецк. Я помню стадион, всем кричал «Россия, Россия, мы русские, мы русские». Я помню, я не забывал этого. Так те люди, которые мне сказали, что в Донецк наше сердце это русские. А те люди, которые освещают, что в Донецк это сепаратист, это те люди, которые просто продавшие, либо никогда не был. А я был в Донецке, я был в Луганске, я был в Мариуполе. А я прекрасно помню, четко, каждый момент, как это было. А когда все сначала, смысл для меня, это просто, что произошло, предыдущего с мая, нарисовать, полностью неправда. полностью бред. Я возмущает из этого. Я возмущает, а я не против дракать. Потому что великобританцы это моя страна, является моя страна Великобритания. Сейчас это стыдно. Сейчас, когда я скажу, что я из Великобритании в Донбасс, это даже стыдно. Я помню, во время Евро-12 людей очень любил Великобритания. Они сказали, что мы вместе, мы народ, Донецк основал великобританский Джон Хьюз. А сейчас люди рассказывают, что Великобритания это поддерживает фашизм. Это очень стыдно, это позор для меня. Я знаю, мои позиции это позиции Великобритании. А насколько я преданный, это допустим, я люблю мою страну, а я буду всем узнать, что реально Великобритания, а реально Великобритания это не это урод. Реально Великобритания это вы. Это людей, которые здесь сегодня. Это вы. А всем будут узнать это. Всем будут узнать этого. Один еще вопрос. Один еще.
Грэм, я
Last
хочу
question.
сказать тебе от всех моих друзей, тебе большие приветы, от моей семьи. Все горды вообще тем, что ты занимаешься, тем, чем ты занимаешься. И я хотела спросить, чем мы реально еще можем помочь из России? Вот мы здесь с тобой встречаемся. Что из России они могут сделать? Как помочь людям Донбасса?
Чтобы оказывать помощь. The people from Russia. If it weren't for, you know what happened in Leningrad in World War II. Everyone that knows history knows that people were so hungry they were cutting pieces off their own body to eat. People were eating pets. They were eating cats. If it hadn't been for the help of Russia, the situation in Donetsk and Lugansk would have been as bad as Donetsk. And I tell you something, that coming back here, this might seem like it's been a difficult day because the venue cancelled and it's been a nightmare. I've had all sorts of hate campaigns from the pro-Ukraine. But I've seen people in Donetsk and Lugansk with no foods. I've seen a mother with 2 children that can't feed them, that's got nothing. That's hardship. People here in Britain are so lucky. And you know what's the hardest thing? Is that they don't appreciate here how lucky they are, what they're losing. When you lose freedom of speech, that's a really hard thing to get back. People here don't appreciate. Look over the road, it's a police car. People here don't appreciate that they're losing the things that our grandfathers fought for. And when you lose these things, it's very hard to get them back. They don't appreciate when people here complain about their lives and their jobs. That I've turned up to places where people's houses are in smoke and people are crying and saying, my mum's just been killed and the house that I worked all my life to build has been destroyed and I've got absolutely nothing. And you know, it's one thing that people don't know, don't appreciate that, but it's the second that people don't know that that's happening in Donbass. If you stop someone in the street and say to them what's happening, no one knows that the Ukrainian government are shelling civilians. That's the great secret here. If people in Britain knew, if people in Britain understood, but what happens is there are people who will do everything so people here don't know. Because if they knew, then we wouldn't send instructors to help Ukraine, to perpetuate this genocide. We wouldn't do that. The biggest war, in many ways, is the war of information. There was a real war in Donetsk. I came back here, and it's an information war. But when I talk about biggest in one way, that's a subjective term, because what we're really talking about is a war which is on civilians, which is against civilians. And there's nothing harder than seeing people with no food, than seeing hungry children. And if it weren't for Russia, believe me, we would have seen situations exactly like we saw in Leningrad in World War II. So Russia's helped enormously. And I'm so happy tonight, and I'm so proud that this country, that Great Britain, is also helping, because everything that you do tonight, it's going to go directly to help people in Pervomais, hospitals in Donetsk, and it's all going to make a difference. Believe me, it's all going to make a difference. I want to say, obviously, massive thanks to Russia, but also we've had Kazakhstan and we've had aid from all over the world. But particularly tonight, thanks for everyone who's come. And we do have a very special person that's come. We have a special guest. We have a special guest here. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about this guest. He's a special mystery guest. This man, some people say he invented the rucksack. Other people say he was the 47th man to tweet from the end of Southend Pier. So I'm doing like the Stig in Top Gear, I'm just kidding. To be serious about this man was the longest Western journalist in all of Donbass. He was in Donbass since last April, so for almost a year. He only left 2 weeks ago. He was one of the first journalists at MH17, and he's a man that honestly, I have to say that nothing that I've done would be possible without this man who I'm unbelievably happy is with us tonight. I'd like you to give a massive London, Donbass, Russia welcome for, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Lancaster! Patrick! Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick has 5 minutes for questions, then we have a break. And by the way, also, I'm just going to take it away from Patrick. Right, all the food tonight, this is a massive thanks to this guy here, Izako, who's made all of this with his bare hands. You've got Patrick for 5 minutes, and you've got the most delicious canapes in all of London. So let's have some questions for Patrick.
Hello.
Hi.
Tell me how difficult it is to go against the stream.
Well, it's for me. I more concentrate on just going with the truth. I don't really concentrate on what everybody else is saying. I just stick to the facts of what I see, and I try my hardest not to input my opinions in what I report.
We know that Graham had troubles with the Ukrainian security forces. Have you come across, the situations like that?
Yes, I've been detained by the Ukrainian army 3 times and the Ukrainian Secret Service, or SBU, once. And actually it was on my birthday last year when I was detained coming from Kramatorsk and taken off the bus by the SBU and held for almost 2 days. A little over 30 hours.
Right, thank you.
What about UK security? I know the Graham had the problem. What about yourself?
No, myself, I didn't have any issues coming into UK. I've been here for 2 days now, and no issues coming into the airport besides the plane being a little late.
Do you have any problems? Well, do they have any problems with the original British citizens? Anyone approaching you and, let's say, neither supporting you or vice versa?
No, I've kind of stayed a little bit under the radar since I've been here, and I'm kind of a quiet guy normally, so I haven't had any...
Patrick is a quiet guy, but this man is a hero. This man is a... I'll tell you a little story about Patrick. We were near Donbass, and this was... I've not really told about this story before. I can tell a few behind-the-scenes things, a few behind-the-scenes secrets. There was a battalion called the Prizrak Battalion, and they're basically like a bunch of real renegades. And when Donbass, this would be about February the 12th, the Novorossiya forces were moving in, but it was still occupied by the Ukrainians. So these guys went into Donbass, and then they were quickly surrounded, and there was really no backup to them at that point. So they were basically in there under siege. Anyway, they said to us that we can take you in there, but we probably won't take you out, because you'll probably both get killed. This is the Opolchen that said that. And Patrick speaks a bit of Russian, but they said it to me in Russian. I said, no, давай, хорошо, едем. Patrick, da. So I explained to Patrick, you understand that they're saying that if you go in, then, you're going to get killed, and that's why you won't come back. And Patrick said, da. So I want to say that, he might look like a kind of a sailor, a kind of a sexy Russian sailor. But this man has the heart, and he doesn't like to be called Braveheart. You know that everyone has a позывной, like a tag name. Patrick wants to be Jesus because of his hair, but they all call him, на русском называется Patrick храбрый сердце. Patrick чуть-чуть против этого. But this man has a huge heart, and he's one of the bravest, and finding Patrick was the most fortunate, was the luckiest thing that happened to me. Without Patrick, none of these photos, nothing is possible. So this man is modest, and he's quiet, and he's shy, but he's so brave, honestly, and it's all heart. So to Patrick, woo! Hurrah! So we have one more question for Patrick.
Если Патрик храброе сердце, тогда ты бесстрашная.
Я просто лысый башкой.
Грэм, когда будет ваше продолжение фильма?
No, еще украинский film обо мне. Развлечение Graham Phillips. No, Привлечение Graham Phillips. The Ukrainian television. Приключения Graham Phillips, or The Adventures of Graham Phillips. Ukrainian television made like a 15-minute documentary. So, but I want to say that every attack that happens on us, every attack that happens on Twitter, I'll log on and there'll be lots of abuse from that guy knows каждый нападение мне становится сильнее. Every attack means that we're more and more in the right, because you understand the key, the crucible is information. What we're doing tonight is getting that information, is disseminating it, is getting people to really know the score, what's going on. And that makes a massive, massive difference. And every one of you tonight, you're making a real massive impact. And Patrick being here, he wouldn't have missed it for the world, and he's here. He's in England. The police haven't stopped him, at least not yet. The night's young. We're going to have one more question for Patrick, and then we're going to have a break. Then we have some amazing singing, some entertainment. And then we have the auction. And if you want one of these pictures, you need to put your name down and say which picture you want, because we can only auction half of the pictures tonight. So we're going to have one more question for the man sometimes called Patrick Napcaster, because he does quite often sleep, but he's always awake when you need him. So one more question for Patrick.
Can I ask, one of the most tragic things I see at the moment happening is the artificially created hatred that is not historically true between Russians and Ukrainians. Half my family are Ukrainians. I've been brought up to love Ukraine like Russia, like one family, and have greatest respect for both countries. And do you see any chance, any hope in the millions of Ukrainian people who are friendly with Russia, who feel part of the same culture, part of the same faith? Do you see that these good, people with good hearts and with love, do you think that they will resist the hateful campaign, the forces that are pushed on them, if that makes sense?
I think that there are many great compassionate people on both sides of the conflict right now, but I think unfortunately the events in Maidan and the events in Donbass have driven an enormous wedge between the people. And yes, I believe some people, civilians will forgive on both sides, but not all. But the fact is, right now there are families that are driven in two because of their beliefs. I've met brothers. Well, I've met a brother on one side in Pervomaisk. He came from his friend's funeral, and he was telling us how his brother was pro-Ukrainian, and his brother vowed to kill him and his family. And this is something that happens many times. Just the politics and the division in the country just drives families apart, and it's a horrible thing to witness.
I'll add to that, and then we'll have a little break. That I always liked the west of Ukraine. My girlfriend was from the west, and I always liked, Ukraine. And I don't know, I don't exactly understand sometimes that Ukraine, I'm banned for 3 years. They've told me that I'm like one of the main terrorists. Sometimes I'm the main enemy of Ukraine. They sometimes say that I'm one of the main enemies, and I don't exactly understand it, because I always remember before Euromaidan that I thought Ukraine was kind of nice and sweet, and the language, Pulaski was quite sweet. I don't understand what's happened, but what happened at Maidan, to be there was to understand it was a very bad thing that happened at Maidan. It was like a nightmare that you knew that was going to end badly, and it's ended with the situation that two flags, the Ukrainian and Russian flag, that I used to see flown together all the time. I remember in Euro 2012, people posing with Ukrainian and Russian flags, and even in Donetsk, people told me that, no, верь, мы русские, но мы не против Украины. Сейчас является, что те, которые были раньше знакомы или друзья, становятся врагом. И это все политичные, это все геополитичные, это все США, который лезал, Евросоюз, который лезал, а людей просто забил, а потерял, кто они такой. Они сейчас считают, что врагом это бывший братом. Это очень жаль, это трагедия, когда это брат против брата. Но сейчас реальная разница. Сейчас, just now, I think Ukraine and Russia are really far apart in terms of how people think and how people perceive each other. There always was a Ukraine, of a Ukrainian history, of a Lvov and a Ukrainian language, but it was only one part of Ukraine. In Donetsk, that was always the Ukraine that was the other side of the country, the one that they tolerated, but that was never theirs. But now people have been made to choose. People have been made to take sides, and that's a tragic thing. But that's the fault of these people that are not from Lvov, are not from Donetsk, that are from Washington, are from Brussels, and that's really a tragic thing. And my girlfriend Ira from Rovna, I remember in the west of Ukraine in May, she sent me an email saying, Graham, I never want to speak to you again, you're a separatist. And people have got used to using these terms, separatists, terrorists, provocateur. People think of terminology, of propaganda, And that's a real shame. And that's a real shame for Ukraine, because when you stood on Euromaidan, you understood that that was the end of Ukraine. And the end of Ukraine is a sad thing. It is a sad thing, but it isn't a reason to kill people in Donbass. Because what does a country mean? A country means people. And what do people mean? People mean everything. After Euromaidan, there should have been a decision for Donbass to remain or to separate, to continue and to punish people that stood up against something that was never legal and never legitimate is really a dreadful thing. But I hope that when we have this time next year, we'll be able to separate something new, which is Donbass, which is Novorossiya. So this is just now. Let's hope in a year's time все наладится, а все будет хорошо, даже пучком. Это уже пора за перерыв. It's time for the first break. So you have 10 minutes, have some canapes, have some alcohol, and then we're going to have the most amazing entertainment you've ever seen. So she's a Spasibo Patrick Lancaster!